Hey, this is Daniel Grove, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Blender 3.0 geometry nodes to make some cool scattering effects. I've showed this in previous videos, but thanks to all the amazing changes they've made to 3.0, the geometry nodes have changed at least some of the nodes that we used before for scattering. So I'm going to show you how to do it the new way and how to have fun with it, how to tweak it, and how to make some really cool stuff. So let's get started. So if you're at all in touch with the Blender world, you will know by now that Blender 3.0 came out on December 3rd, and this is a stable version, big deal, lots of changes, lots of new features and fixes and optimization as well for different graphics cards. Super exciting. I love seeing Blender progress. You know, it's not slowing down, it's not losing funding, it's gaining more funding now. I mean, Apple's on board, Microsoft's on board, I think Google was. So this is awesome. There's a lot of money coming in to help Blender get better and better, and we reap the benefits. And it's all free. It's still free, and it will always be free. So, however, with new updates and changes, there's changes. And along with those changes, the geometry nodes have been enhanced and improved a lot, but that means that the way things used to be done with geometry nodes is now a little different. Actually, I showed in previous videos, someone just commented and said, hey, this doesn't work anymore, 3.0. You need to update your process, and you were totally right. So I did a bunch of digging, a bunch of homework, and I asked on the Blender Facebook group because I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not one of those smart guys who just figures things out. I had to ask for help and watch a bunch of YouTube videos, but I figured it out. So here I am. I'm going to save you all that time. I'm going to put it right in front of you right now, hopefully in a short video. So enjoy. Let's get started. Okay, so here we are in the new Blender 3.0. Let's get started with our scene. It's going to have just a square plane that's going to emit our objects in random positions, random rotations, and random scales using the geometry nodes, of course. And the objects themselves are going to be stored in a collection. This will help organize things and just make things so much easier in the long run. And you can have multiple collections displaying. So let's get that started. Shift A to make a, oh, it's on the top, plane. There we go. Let's scale it up. So S, I'm going to move my mouse out and click to confirm. There we go. Now this scene might get pretty big later when we start making objects and having things emit everywhere. So let's press the N panel, go to View, and let's change this end limit to add 2 zeros in there. Make it, what is that, 1,000,000? 10,000? I don't know. I don't know numbers. This way, when things get really big, they won't clip when they get far away. Okay, press N to make that go away. All right, now let's over here make a new collection. So right click in this empty area, click on New Collection, double click, and name it Parts 1. Okay, and let's get started with the geometry nodes, and then we'll make some cool objects and have them scatter all over the place in here, and then we'll take it to the next level, as I always do, and make something truly cool. All right, so let's split our view. If you don't have a split view, let me show you how to split it. Put your mouse in the top corner, it turns into a crosshair. Click and drag down or across to split your screen the other way. I'm going to make this top view bigger, and I'm going to change the editor type to the geometry nodes editor. Okay, press N to get rid of the side panel, save you some room. Click on New, and let's call it Scatter. All right, let's move these things farther apart because there's going to be a bunch of nodes in the middle. So click on one, press G to move. Click on the other one, G to move it over here. All right, so here are the nodes. It took me quite a while to figure out and piece together from other videos that were doing different things. Here's what you need. You are welcome for all the time I'm going to save you right now. So first, press Shift A for the add. Click on Search. Type in the word faces, and this will lead you right to the right one. Distribute points on faces. Okay, you can put that right here. Automatically, the geometry data will plug into the mesh input. That's good. You can move this over here. All right, time for the next node. Shift A, click on Search, and type in points. Now, we're looking for instance on points. So not two, instance on points. There we go. Click right there. Points into points input. That's good. Next, we need a collections info node. Shift A, click on Search, and just type in COLL, collection info. All right, this is where we're going to select our collection, which is Parts 1, and drag the data of the geometry output to the instance input. So an instance is just a vague term for a location that something can be on. In this case, objects from inside of a collection. Now I need to check a few options here to make sure this will work right. Click on Pick Instance, And then in the collections info, check both of these, separate children and reset children. All right, now I'm going to make a cube and use a cube in this place temporarily to show you what's going on visually. So Shift A, search, type in cube, plug it in here and disconnect that. Now for this example to work, let's uncheck that pick instance. We will turn this back on later. And now we have a bunch of cubes distributed randomly along our plane that we made originally. The size of this cube can be turned down so that we can kind of better see, where these things are placed. In your distribute points on faces node is where you control the density and the seed. So if you turn this density up, guess what? It's more dense. Down, less dense. All right. We have seed, which just randomizes the placement in this area. And these cubes will eventually be replaced with our parts we're going to make in just a minute. So let's add a few more nodes and then we can have fun modeling some parts. So delete our cube, Shift A, make a random value. I love this node. And then we're going to make a combine XYZ. So search, just type in XYZ. There we go. Now this random number is going to be kind of copied to the X, the Y, and the Z, which is turning into, of course, vector data, which we can plug into rotation or scale. In this case, let's put it on scale so we have control over a scale with randomization, and we can set a minimum, maximum, and of course a seed. Let's connect the rotation output of this node to the rotation input of that one. And if you want to keep your base mesh, you can join the original geometry to the final output result. So to do that, search, type in join, put this here, and then plug this. This is the original unchanged data to here. So we'll see the plane or whatever face or mesh or model you're applying geometry nodes to, you'll still see it underneath if that's what you want. If this is just a location holder to put a bunch of greebles on, you don't want the plane to be visible, then don't do what I just did here. All right, now let's get into the fun part of this project and make some parts. So I'm going to make all my parts over here inside of my part 1 collection. So click on the collection, Shift A, let's add a cube. And everything this way is on the y-axis. And I'm going to make a whole bunch of pieces that are going to stretch out this way. So let's speed this up and make a few parts. All right, we've got a bunch of random sci-fi looking things. I don't know how big these are. I don't know how small these are. They're buildings, if they're greebles or whatever, but we're going to have fun with them. So first, before we get too far into this, let's get these all the same material. So I'm going to call this part 1 because we might make a part 2 collection and so on and so forth with 3 and 4. So with this first part selected, I'm going to press B for box select all the rest of them. And this first one is still the active object, which is good because it has the material we want. To copy to the others, to do that, press Control L for link and link materials. That way they all have the same material and we can do whatever we want to them later. And yeah, so let's click on our plane, get our geometry nodes back in our main view, and let's connect this stuff up the right way. So geometry nodes output of our collection info, which is part 1 collection, plug it into instance. And instantly, look at this, we got all those parts just randomly all over the place and the scale is just not right. So let's fix that by setting a minimum of very small. So let's try .1 and then .2 for maximum. There we go. That's a little better. Let's turn our density down a little bit so we can see more what's going on. And look at this. All the objects are combined into one and being copied together because we didn't recheck pick instance. So this, I guess, means that it's going to pick an instance, put it on a point, which the points are given from this distribution pattern over here. And what is the on each point? An instance, and the instance is an object from the collection. Woo, that's a lot. I'm amazed that I said that correctly in my first try. Okay, so now we can see better what's going on. Let's turn our density back up, and we got a little city growing here. That's pretty cool. If we had enough city pieces that were more unique, like, look, this is pretty cool, right? Very little effort. We already got nice randomization. And yeah, this is already looking pretty sweet. Let's turn our scale down some more. Oh, also concerning scale, let's select these guys and let's apply the scale. Now, I don't think this is going to do anything because I didn't really scale these, but it is important to select, press Control A, and choose Apply Scale, because in case you scale something up or down, that really doesn't matter in the collection unless you apply scale. Watch this. If I apply scale to this guy, now all the copies of this over here are big, but we don't want that. We want it to be small. So make sure your scales are all ones, right? If you go to Object Info, they're all scale 1XYZ. That's good. All right, now obviously I don't have a whole lot of variety here. I only have a few objects, and you can definitely tell the copying, and the pasting. So one good thing to do if you're, say, making a city or some kind of like Death Star type surface and you're making greeble pieces is copy them and then modify them to be something more interesting. So what happens if I select one of these pieces and I copy a bunch of them and make more duplicates? Watch this. If I grab this little city block looking piece, press Shift D, and I'm going to make a copy right here. I'm going to press Shift R to copy that. If I make a whole bunch of copies, look, there's more of this building than there are other pieces, which means statistically, the chance of it being a building piece is way higher than being, a trussing or an antenna. So if you have copies of things that you want to be more likely to repeat, then make copies of them. If you don't want something to be used as much, you need to make more objects other than that one. So if I make a whole bunch of antennas, a whole bunch of trusses, a whole bunch of cylinders, but only one building, there's going to be less buildings. So that's one way to control the likelihood or the likeliness of something being instanced in your scatter. Also, while I edited my objects, you probably noticed that I kept moving the object up and then making sure that origin point, that little dot, is always on the base. That's really important because that is the point where the object will spawn from in your scatter over there, that thing over there. So if you have created an object, let's say I'm going to make a cube right here, right there. Now look, the origin point is actually in the middle, which means when it spawns, look at that. Half of it is underground. It's not going to be visible in most cases. There's two ways to easily fix that. One is go into edit mode, select all the faces with letter A, G, Z, and move it all up to where it starts at the origin point. The second way to fix an origin point is to move the origin point, but not the object. To do that, press N, go to Tool, and then check Origins. And now with my Move tool selected over here, I can actually move X, Y, and Z, the origin, wherever I want it to be. So in this case, I can press 3 for side view and just click and drag it down to the base or the starting point of my cube. And make sure you uncheck origins when you're done moving the origin, or else everything you move, we just screw up the origins. So with that unchecked, I'm back to normal moving mode. I can actually move the object. And just because I have a little bit of OCD, I'm going to put it right on line with that green line, which is kind of like my invisible, non-existent floor. Got to fix these, got to fix that, got to fix that. And okay, now I'm happy. Oh, that one. There we go. All right, now they're all on the green line and I can sleep good tonight. So yeah, be careful with your origin point. Make sure it's always at the bottom. And let's turn this into something cool over here real quick. Let's see, GZ to move it down, E to extrude, S to scale it up, E to extrude it again, I for inset, E for extrude. I'm going to grab each of these trapezoids, I to inset. I'm going to make it kind of small, E to extrude them up, E to extrude them again, and then with median point selected, scale them inward like that and then up. Ooh, that's cool. I don't know what it is, but it's cool. You could definitely use a lot more modeling, some cool textures, and you'll have yourself something interesting. And now, there they are. We have some right there. If I want it to be smaller, then I need to tab into edit mode, press A for all, and S to scale it down. But look, I'm scaling it away from the origin point down here, so that's not good. You may want to scale it and then move it down, GZ, to be, on your origin point. And that's better. Okay, what if we want the scattering surface to not be a flat plane? What if we make it into a cube? I'm going to click on my plane, tab into edit mode, select that face, and E to extrude it upwards. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is so cool. We have something. I don't know what it is yet. It could be something awesome later. Now let's take it to the next level. Stay in edit mode, press A to select all, and Control B for bevel. Now we are beveling the edges of the cube to be some other kind of three-dimensional shape, and we've got some nice 45-degree angles on all of what used to be edges. Very cool. Let's get rid of the side panel by pressing N, and let's hide this parts 1 collection just by clicking the monitor button. If you don't have that, click on the filter, turn on the monitor on and off. That just turns it off in your viewport. There we go. And now it just cleans up our view so we don't have those. Let's select our crazy thing here, this strange sci-fi satellite object, and let's play with the scales here. So the maximum, let's make the maximum pretty big and the minimum pretty small. Let's turn up our density to populate it even more. Now we got a bunch of cool stuff sticking out everywhere. Let's switch over to our material shader and click on one of these objects over here so we can get to our part 1 material. Let me show you a cool trick to add a random color to any object using one material, but every instance of the object will have a different color. So Shift A, type in info, we'll get the object info right there. Shift A, type in ramp, plug in a random into the ramp and the output to base color. Now, because we're in material mode here, we can actually see the materials in a kind of a rough pre-ray tracing render. And look at that. There's only one material being used here, but every object has its own unique shade of black and white. What is happening here? Well, the object info is generating a random number for every object or instance. It's going into here so that we can control the contrast. We can make it more black or more white, or we can add colors in here. Let's do like a blue in the middle. The ones with this random, 0.5 will be yellow, and then the ones on the top can be red. Pretty cool, right? Very helpful for getting a bunch of variety without having a bunch of materials. I like that. Let's center up our specular, up our metallic. Let's zoom in here really close, and let's make this our rendered view. So to do that, assuming you already have an active camera in your scene somewhere, type Control-Alt-0, and that'll make your viewport view the camera angle. Now we can move our camera around. Let's give it a cool Dutch angle here. There we go. And I'm not liking the cylinder here, so I'm just going to click on my object, go to my geonodes, or you can go to the wrench icon, which is your modifiers. And this is actually a modifier. So let's turn this into a node group real quick so we can control everything right here instead of having to go back here all the time. So some of the parameters you may want to control is, of course, density, your seed value, which will give us a new arrangement, our minimum scale and maximum scale. And that is good enough right now for me. So we can stay in our shader editor here and we can control everything right here. So seed, look at this. If I play with my seed, it gives me a whole new arrangement. Pretty awesome. We got our minimum and maximum scale here. We can play with in our density, turn it up or down. That's pretty cool. A big mess of pieces. Now I want this to look big, so I'm going to make my camera a wide angle camera by selecting my camera, go to camera tab, change this to like a 10 or 20. I'm going to go with 15 right in the middle. I want it to be closer, so GZZ. I'm just going to move my mouse up and down to get like a cool angle here. Another camera angle trick I like to do is put your 3D cursor in the center by pressing Shift C. Go back to your camera angle by pressing numpad 0. Change your origin pivot point to 3D cursor, and now we can rotate our camera around the 3D cursor, which is where? Right in the middle of everything. So I just pressed RR to kind of freely rotate based on my mouse movement. And let's find an interesting angle. How about this one right here? This is a pretty cool angle. And move it out just a little bit. There we go. Cool. Now where's our light? Let's go to rendered view. I'm going to click on my light, go back to individual pivot point, and this is a sunlight, so I'm just going to press RR, and I can change where my light's coming through. If I want it to be like a silhouette, coming around through the edges, if I want it to be nice and bright and flat, I can put it right here. I like side lighting for this kind of stuff because it bounces through all the little shapes and just gives a lot of cool detail. Awesome. All right, I'm noticing one of my cylinders here is obviously low poly, so I'm going to find my circle objects, turn back on my collection here. Go to object mode so it's easier to see, and I'm going to shade smooth these guys. So with it selected, W, shade smooth, W, shade smooth, this one, anything that's based on cylinders, you want it to look nice and smooth. These guys, and they look really weird, but it's because you need to turn on the auto smooth option in your normals panel inside the object data properties. So check mark that. This uses the angle of the edges to tell what's sharp and what's smooth. There we go. Things look normal again. All right, cool. Now that we're done with that, let's go back to our camera view. Look at that. The cylinders are nice and smooth. Let's add some creepy misty fog to this scene to give it a cool look in my tutorial example art. So switch over to compositor, Make sure it's turned on, a check mark there. You'll have something that looks like this. Your image data is going across to your output. Very basic and boring. Shift A, type in mix. Right there. Let's make sure our mist pass is turned on. For me it is, and I'm going to plug it into my factor. But if it's not, let's go to these little picture icons here, which is your view layer properties, and make sure mist is checked. And now you can drag mist and plug it into your factor. Now we need to set up our mist parameters. Let's press numpad 1 to get a side view. Where's our camera? There it is. It's really teeny tiny, so I'm going to S to scale it up. There we go. Now we can see where the camera is. It's looking like that. Go to your camera properties, scroll down, in your viewport display, turn on mist, and then in your world settings, mist pass. Now we can set the starting and end points of your mist generation. What the heck is mist? You're about to find out. I'm going to set it around here when it starts to hit the objects, and then the depth is going to end somewhere past the object right there. Okay, I'm going to hit render and watch the magic happen. Oh yeah, look at that. We had some atmospheric perspective, which means the farther away something is, the more mist there is, and it's going to basically make it white because we chose white as our bottom color here. If you want it to be more misty, to make it thicker, you can make this a little bit closer to the camera, a smaller number, somewhere around there. This is our before, and this is our after. So going back and forth, we can see it's denser, the fog ends quicker or closer to the camera. Okay, I mentioned earlier about using two different collections of different parts and scattering it on the same target. In this case, this weird beveled cube. So let's make another collection down here. Call it part 2, or parts 2, I guess. There we go. Click on it. Let's make a cube, and I'm going to place it parallel over here. So I know these two lines are different collections, and give me just a second. I'm going to make some other random parts here, and I'll show you how to include them into this geometry node setup. Okay, so I made these tall, slender objects using a wireframe modifier to give it obviously a wireframe look. They're in parts 2. Let me show you how to include these into our already existing setup. So click on our crazy thing over here, go to geometry nodes, scroll down to where we have this collection info, Shift D to duplicate it, select parts 2 collection, Shift A and type in join. And we're just going to join the geometry of these two collections. So put it right here and then drag geometry into here. And this large green blob means that we can basically add infinite inputs into here. It's like a group input. You can put a bunch of data into it instead of just one input. And there we go. Now we have all these geometries being joined, brought up into here, and added in the midst of all of our shapes. Let's go back to our rendered view. Now we have a bunch of crazy wireframes, and I'm actually going to make these wireframes a little bit smaller because they're kind of crowding up our setup and making it a little too crazy. So grab this 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to scale them down, and then remember, apply scale. There we go. They shrunk down, and that's a little better. It's going to add some cool fine detail and some structures. So this is before, and that's after. Now, because we added new objects to the mix, it did change the arrangement of our meshes. And yeah, so that's as far as I'm going to go with this. As you can see, there's a lot of potential. It's really up to you to make great looking objects to scatter. This can be used for rocks, for plants, for trees, all kinds of things, organic and technological, greebles, wires, gears, just whatever you're making. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something new. If you did, comment down below. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them all. If you have any really cool renders, send them my way to this email right here. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and come back soon.